Sit on the right edge of this thing.
Hey everyone, my name is Georgia Ray Braun. I'm up here in the attic with Philip Saylor Weiser, also known as Stripmall Ballads. Phillips has been playing music for the better part of 2 decades. He won the 2021 Whammy for Best Folk Album. His music has been described as, what was the word again? Introspective darkness. So welcome, Phillips.
Thank you for having me, Georgia.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I guess we should just start from the beginning and talk a little bit about some of your first, earliest musical memories, what inspired you to want to pick up a guitar. Just start from square one.
Sure. When I was young, I had a cousin on my father's side who also grew up in Maryland. And he left for LA during like the latter days of like the hair metal scene. And he was going to be like a hair metal guitar player, my cousin Scott. He was fantastic. Still is a great guitar player. And so I remember being very young, and when he would come back from LA, he would have all of his guitars and stuff like that. And I just thought he was the coolest. And from there, I moved around like 10, 11 to playing the tennis racket in the mirror. You know,
Yeah.
Playing
Classic.
tennis racket guitar was pretty instrumental in my evolution there. And then I had cousins on my other side of the family who also were interested in music and had started playing guitar and mandolin. And we had an uncle who had a banjo. And so around that 13, 14, 15 started, we all just were playing together all the time and learning songs before the internet and before songbooks and stuff like that, and learning stuff by ear. And and I knew pretty early on that songwriting was being a singer-songwriter or something like that was something I was really, really into.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, young. I was young. I was like 13 or 14, and I first like took acid, right? Kind of by accident, kind of not by accident. And
That's a
around that same time, like I got really, really into music, and I was like into like AC/DC, James Taylor, and the Grateful Dead. Like those are my top 3 things.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing this VH1 rebroadcast of a James Taylor concert from the early 70s that he did on the BBC. And he's just, this long-haired young kid playing these like super sensitive songs about like feelings and stuff. And I was like, I have feelings. I was like, I want to do that.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then and so then from then on, like 14, 15, it was just let's just be a singer-songwriter. Cool. And then that evolved more into like let's be a musician. And then that evolved back into let's be a singer-songwriter, and then let's be just a musician, and then teacher and singer-songwriter. It's all this thing.
So where are you at now? Do you feel more like a musician or a singer-songwriter?
Everything. It's like this rising tide thing, slowly. You know, I go through periods where I'm intensely focused on a new part of the technique side of being a musician, or I'll go and buy a bunch of old sheet music and music theory books, and I'll just get way into that, and then I'll put that down for a while and then go back to the songwritery side, and then and one river kind of feeds into the other.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about this title, I guess you could say, for lack of a better word, as being an outsider folk musician.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about what that movement is, what it means to you?
Yeah. It's an evolving definition for me, but there were a number of musicians, singer-songwriters that I was really into. I guess the best example would be a guy like Michael Hurley,
Yeah.
right? Who never really on his own had a hit, but never stopped making music, and kind of over time grew this cult following and this cult audience. And now in 2025, people like Big Thief are covering his songs
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And he kind of existed outside of the mainstream music industry. And not only that, I feel like, again, we'll use Michael Hurley as an example. You either love it or it's really not for you.
Yeah.
It really misses it. And so as much as I've tried in my career to join the mainstream or even the substream, I continually find myself on the outsides. And so from a career vantage, I kind of feel like there haven't been these big flashes of success so far in my experience, but that doesn't necessarily dissuade me from continuing.
Yeah.
Right.
Nor
You'll
should
do
it.
this. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm kind of creating outside mainstream or sub-mainstream. Though these days with Instagram and phones and internet, there's mainstream doesn't really mean the same thing as when I was sort of coming up.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the content, because of the experiences that I've had and the life that I've lived and the people I've spent time with and the characters and scenarios that I write and sing about are all people and places that tend to be on the margins of acceptable society. And so there's a little bit of an outside bent to that as well. But then, also as an independent musician, we're just constantly looking for some kind of brand, something we can say as we're reaching out to promoters or venues or blah, 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 blah. You want to have something that people were like, oh, I'll remember outsider folk music.
Yeah.
Even if I don't know what that means.
No, absolutely.
Right.
It's always stuck with me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another thing that I wanted to bring up with you is I feel like your music is almost cinematic.
Thank you.
I feel like you create a whole world and like a whole vibe. And you understand like the importance of aesthetics, both sonically and visually. And is that an intentional was that intentional for you, or did it just kind of come about naturally? How did you kind of develop this? I hate to use the word brand because it kind of devalues it, but it is it's a holistic, I think, artistic approach that you have.
Well, thank you. Either intentionally or unintentionally, it's something I've been cultivating for a very long time. I'll say aesthetically, my first real professional band in the early aughts was for lack of a better word, like an old time duo.
Oh, cool.
And we very much had like the look, right? Of like ill-fitting large coats and the hats and
like, oh brother, where art thou?
Yeah, a little bit. And realized playing in that old time circuit, in that really hyper-focused folk world, that the visual representation really helped sell it. And after a while, that began to really feel inauthentic to me.
Yeah.
And when I started Stripmall Ballads, a lot of that has been, this project has been evolving as I've been evolving as a human being, as a person, as a man. And so the aesthetic has been evolving at that same time. musically, songwritery wise, I can only write the songs that I write.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
I've tried, in certain periods of my life in like the Nashville world or other scenes like that, I've tried to write in a certain vein, in a certain voice, in a certain perspective, and it's just been disastrous. And so, how I go about songwriting, especially lyrically, it's really kind of like the only way that I know how to
Yeah. I
paint
understand.
these narratives. I'm not very good at saying this song is about this one thing. This
Yeah.
happened, then this happened, and then it concluded with this thing happening.
Right.
Right? And you listen to that song, you'll be like, oh, that's about a nice day at the park or whatever.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of songwriters who I admire greatly can sit down and say, this is a song about.
Right.
And a lot of the times with my songs, I think it's still true to this day. I will write the song, and then over time, over playing it, over sort of living with it, I'm like, I think it might be about this. But I
Yeah.
don't write in that sort of linear fashion. I kind of take
Right.
a thing here, a thing here. I think you can play with the idea of narrative a lot by just painting a picture. So, I don't know.
No,
know.
I totally resonate with what you're saying.
Yeah.
I feel like there's almost like a subconscious element to
Absolutely,
songwriting. And then it's like,
absolutely.
oh, now I have the self actualization to be like, that's where I was at that point in my life.
Right, right,
know?
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, and I think it's, don't try to write what you can't write because
Yeah,
it's probably going to suck. That's my word of advice today. George's tip of
Probably
the
gonna
day. So I know you've spent a significant of time on the road over the years, both with bands and solo. And I would love to talk a little bit about your experiences with that. Are there any standout venues or any standout random junction towns or people you've met? I'm
Yeah.
sure there are many.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There are many. There are a lot of eras back in the '90s. After I left high school and was traveling around quasi aimlessly, but playing all over the country, and it was either busking or random cafes here and there. There were always great towns that stuck out of my mind, like Burlington, Vermont was always
I've always wanted to
really
go.
great, really great busking scene, really vibrant, cooperative, transient homeless population. And there's a place, it used to be called Java Love. Now it's called Radio Bean. That used to be really good to me back when I was like 17. I remember playing at the Earth First, the activist movement.
Oh, wow,
They
that's
had their Headwater Forest camp in Northern California. This was back in the 90s when Julie Butterfly was still up in the redwood and trying to save that tree. I don't know if you guys remember that. Might be a bit before your time. But I remember going to base camp and playing there. More recently, I'm going through the Rolodex here of like fancy gigs, but no one wants to hear fancy gigs. I will say I was talking to a student the other day about some of the more meaningful shows to me.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, I was out in Britt, Iowa, at the National Hobo Convention, which happens every
I wanted to
every
ask you
summer.
about that.
And that's a good party. That's a really good time, and they really love music. But this was back in 18, maybe 2018. There was a carnival that was coming through town as well, in the same town as to where this hobo convention was. So on one side of town, you had the carny camp, and then on the other side of town, you had this like hobo rubber tramp camp. And at about midnight, a couple of these carnies come over, and they're hanging out and they're saying, "Hey, we're gonna go back, and we got this card game going. Anybody here play poker? Want to come play? Want to play cards?" And so I was hanging out with this one guy who loved playing cards, and so me and him went back to this carny camp. I don't play cards, but I just remember sitting in this sort of this circle of beat up RVs and this makeshift wire spool table with like half carny, half hobo playing poker, and I'm just sitting back there just playing instrumental folk and blues stuff. You know what I mean?
Cool.
But and it's under this gorgeous night in the middle of rural Iowa, and I just remember sitting there being like, "This is so great." So it's just I'm just like the guy in the background playing the roots music while these cats are playing, and then around 3 or 4 in the morning it was breaking up, and everyone's settling up at the table, and then these carnies and these freight hoppers come and like tip me out. You know what I mean? Like, thanks for playing all night. And it was only like, I don't know, like $12 or something like that. But I was like, that was the most honest $12 I've ever made from a show. Yeah, it was pretty good.
Sounds so surreal.
Yeah, it was very.
Like a Bob Dylan song or something.
Yeah, or like Fellini-esque or something.
Totally.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, what about the more fancy shows? I know that I came and saw you play with John R. Miller.
Yes.
He's great. If you don't know him, check him out.
Absolutely. John R. Miller.
You played some shows with Tommy Prine recently,
yes,
too?
I went out with Tommy Prine last year. And those were very comfortable shows.
Yeah.
Very nice venues, very well attended, and really good listening rooms. And in those, I'm just the opening act, so it's really just go out and play for 35 or 40 minutes.
Were those in Europe? Correct me if I'm
No,
wrong.
those were just across the Midwest.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, across
I don't
the
know where I got
Midwest.
Europe from.
And more recently I was out with a group called Buffalo Wobbs and the Price Hill Hustle. They're from Cincinnati and Kentucky, and again, they play some really larger type rooms and stuff like that, and those guys have been really good to me, really friendly for me. But everything from like, man, this one time in a previous band, when I was in this group called the Shiftless Rounders, we were playing this Wednesday night show at the Rockwood Music Hall, right, in New York City. And it seems like nobody's there. You know, no one knew who we were, I don't think, at the time. And, there's like 9 people there. And so you go up there and you give it your all and you kick your ass, but it turns out of the 9 people there, like 7 of them like work in the music industry. You know what I mean?
Right,
And so this guy comes up to us, and he's like, "Hey, you're really good. I work for RCA. I'd love to talk to you guys about doing some more stuff, or maybe a showcase." And so the next time through, we give this guy a call, and he set up for us to do this showcase at RCA Victor. I don't even know if it's a real company anymore. It might have gotten bought out, but I remember going into the building, and in the lobby there was this huge golden bust of Elvis, and you're staring at it. It's like it's a little weird.
It's intimidating.
Well, yeah, because they killed that man.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then going up and literally sitting in a boardroom. And at the long table, and me and my old time buddy at one end of the table, and then this A&R guy and a couple of record executives at the other end being like, "Well, do your stuff."
Yeah.
This is the most sterile environment and the most off-putting setting for me at the time, and so we really didn't know how to take advantage of that. And that story gets crazier and crazier, but we don't have to go into it.
I won't push you.
Okay. That's
Only
good.
what you're comfortable
I think
with.
that man is still an important person in the music industry.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I love you, John. I miss you, buddy.
We won't name
Let's
any
keep
last
working together.
names.
Yeah.
So, your music obviously is very deeply rooted in a sort of American folk tradition.
Sure.
But also has a lot of modern elements.
Sure.
And I'm just always curious, people who are able to kind of meld the old with the new, how you do it, and also how you keep kind of the spirit of folk music alive. I mean, you mentioned, singing about people on the margins of society, which I think is really speaks to your dedication to that kind of tradition. So yeah, if you could just talk a little bit about your respect for the old and you trying to bring it into 2025 and beyond.
Yeah. If I am doing that at all,
correct me if I'm wrong.
No, well, way back when I was starting out, like I love Bob Dylan. And so you can't really love Bob Dylan and not slide back into Woody Guthrie. And you can't love Woody Guthrie and not slide back into the Carter family. And then you can't not keep sliding back.
So
it keeps
true.
pulling me back every time I think I'm out, And one thing that I picked up on really quick is that like early Dylan was using these Woody Guthrie chord changes and melodies and writing his own thing. And Woody Guthrie was using Carter family chord changes and melodies and doing his own thing. And the Carter family were kind of drawing from everything, chord changes and melodies, and making their own versions of these kind of songs. So very early on, I figured like this is sort of like it's a give and take thing. We're allowed this folk process. You're allowed to like I'm gonna lift that and to try to do my own thing within those confines. And so learning to play and learning to write songs very early on back in the day was there was a lot of that of like this is kind of lifted chords and melody, but I'm going to write my own thing in here. So that's always been present in my musical awareness. And then on the banjo side of things, when I first got into playing serious banjo, clawhammer banjo, my banjo guru, Diane Sanabria, was very clear that she was a link in the chain, and Tommy Thompson, who taught her, was a link in the chain, and he learned from Tommy Jarrell and Fred Cockroom, who were these really huge links in the chain, and that I needed to become a link in the chain. And that even though we go forth, especially in the clawhammer traditional banjo world, we go forth and we can either write our own songs or do what you will musically with the actual technique, there is an element of this version of this song comes specifically from here. And if you don't play it and teach it to other people, it's gonna be forgotten. And it's a real... And so I was like 19 when I started getting into that. And so I immediately felt a real sort of the beautiful weight of this responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the same time, I've also had this irreverence. Like... I want to take it seriously in my own way, but I don't want to take it seriously in the way that you think I should take it seriously. If that makes any sense. So, as much reverence as I do have for traditional vernacular North American folk musics, I also feel like you can't treat these things as precious, fragile things.
Right.
You can break them and reassemble them, and they will still have their inherent soul.
Yes. Agreed.
But yeah, I don't know if I answered.
No,
the question.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your time before you became Stripmall Ballads. Playing, you mentioned like with the Shiftless Rounders, and what kind of inspired the change to, I guess, do your own solo thing?
Well, I had burnt most of the bridges in my life, I think. The Shiftless Rounders, me and my partner, Ben Seidlinger, we first played together because we were cast in a play.
Oh.
And we were playing Shiftless Rounders. We were like a traveling musical duo that was stranded in this diner during a blizzard.
So funny.
And
so you were cast because you were already, or
no. We had never worked together before.
Oh, that's so funny.
We knew this playwright who was putting together this production, and that's where we first. And then a year or so after, my life had kind of gone off the rails, and I had just gotten sober. I just quit drinking, and I was a live wire. I was a total like exposed nerve in the world. And I ended up, a friend of mine took me in and let me have his guest room while I was getting my shit together. And Benny was renting out a space at this house building guitars. And at some point, a couple months into it, I said, remember we were in that play playing the Shiftless Rounders? I was like, what if we just like be the Shiftless Rounders and like learn I'll teach you some folk stuff, and you should make yourself a dobro, and I'll play banjo.
So
we'll do banjo and dobro. And so we kind of went out with that, and we had a lot of great success. Unfortunately, deciding that I had a problem with alcohol, and then I quit alcohol, and then almost immediately I'm playing in bars for the next 4 years every night is really intense.
Yeah.
And I, in a way, I feel like I used ambition to white knuckle my way through that period of my life, which did not always make me the most pleasant person to work with, or to travel with, or to do anything with. And so it came a time where I think I was incredibly burnt out. I don't think I was very pleasant to be around. And I think my partner, Ben, needed to do something different for his own wonderful reasons. And he had other offers coming in from different bands. And so a bunch of things, I was living in Canada at the time, a bunch of things were happening. And I found myself without my best friend, without my band, without my partner, without income, without anywhere to go. And I wound up coming back to Maryland. And I took a little bit of time and then decided that I still had this desire to be a performing singer-songwriter. And that's when I started Stripmall Ballads. That would have been around 2007 or something like that, just as a moniker.
Yeah.
And then, and then I started doing Stripmall stuff then. And I think it was like 2007 or 2008, we made the first record. And then there was some weird stuff with Warner Brothers that happened that ended up coming to nothing. That record still has not been released.
Oh, really?
But yeah, and so it's just been, since then, that's what I've been kind of doing.
How did sobriety affect your creativity, if at all?
Oh, well, it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
But I think blanket statement could be said that it makes everything better. Makes everything better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Good. Yeah.
Totally.
Listen, kids.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've said to a lot of people, like, I've made every mistake in the book. Mm-hmm. Every time I should have gone right, I went left. You know what I mean? I've made a lot of mistakes. But I think I've learned a lot. I think I'm making less mistakes now.
I mean, that's all you can really hope for, right?
Exactly.
So I'll just end on a couple of soft questions.
Okay.
Favorite song you've ever written?
Oh, God, hopefully the next one. Hopefully the next one. I started one a couple nights ago.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Favorite one ever, you think?
I don't know.
It might be?
I don't know. That's how you always feel about every new song.
I know,
like,
right?
Oh,
3 days later, you're like, wow.
Yeah,
I should
and
just
then
quit.
Well, not quit, but you're like, it's not that.
That's
good.
how I feel.
But yeah, it's like a new crush. You're like into this thing, and then after a while, you're like, that thing is so annoying. But yeah. I don't know favorite song. There's a number of tunes that people really like hearing lately. There's a song called Pop Tarts that people really like.
Oh, yeah, I know
and
that
there's
one.
a song called Rabbits that
That's
has
a good
really
one, too.
resonated with some folks and stuff like that. So I've always kind of felt like, I told you my Pez theory with songwriting. All right, here's the Pez theory. When I was little, I remember getting this like multi-flavored packs of Pez, right? And then you put them in your Pez dispenser, and then you'd go to town. And let's say your favorite color Pez was purple. And so you clicked the Pez, and it was like not purple, but you still ate it. And you clicked the next one, and it was not. But then like 3 or 4 down, it was a purple, and it was like, yes, that's great. And then maybe there was another one in there. And songs are kind of like that. I feel like there's this queue of songs within. And no matter what, you've got to write the next song here. Because the one app behind that might be like really good. Or it might be a total dud. But I always have felt like you just got to write them out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know a lot of songwriters who will craft one song over 6 months and that's their song. And it's like, yeah, beautiful. Cool. I just have never been able to operate like that.
I know, I'm in the same boat.
Really?
Yeah, totally.
You just write.
I feel like if I can't write it in half an hour, it'll never get written. I just have riffs I've been sitting on for years, and then all my favorite songs I feel like just kind of came out of the ether. You know what I mean?
I do. I was actually thinking about this the other day because I just started this new song 2 nights ago, and I remember feeling like they used to just come out of the ether, or it was the phrase that I was thinking of was you're just waiting for lightning to strike.
Yeah, for sure.
And then thinking about waiting for lightning to strike, there are things you can do to increase your chances to be struck by lightning.
Please
you know
tell
what
me.
I mean?
Yes.
Well, no,
metaphorically.
I mean, you can walk out in the field in the middle of a lightning storm holding an aluminum bat. You're more likely to get struck by lightning. And so in the creative process, in the relationship with the muse, there are things that I do that I can do to be more proactive of that relationship with songwriting, to be more welcoming to the lightning, to be more welcoming to the ether.
Yeah,
and not so much a helpless, lucky bystander of oh, I got a song, this is so great. And
right.
There's ways to work to bring that into the world and to bring more of that into your life.
Would you mind sharing that knowledge? Or is it special secret?
No, it's not secret at all. Lately, I've been really into this notion of whatever you focus your attention on will grow.
True. Very true.
For me, it's been true. And so just the act of sitting down in the morning and just sitting with a blank page and writing and writing and writing and writing. And maybe it's all garbage, but next day, same thing, sitting and writing and writing. At the end of the week, I've got 5-6 pages. And then you can sit with all of these 5 or 6 pages, and maybe there's a good line here, or a good line here, or here's a thing, or here's a thing. And you put something together from that. Now, again, Pez theory. It might not be all that good, but it's continuing to work. It's greasing these gears. It's setting the place at the table for that thing to come and sit with you. And then, of course, a couple of nights ago, I was ready to hit the hay, and just out of the blue was, here's this idea for the song, sit and write 9 stanzas. And
wow.
But again, that's because I've been spending every day walking around in a lightning storm waving a piece of metal saying, please hit me. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a constantly evolving practice.
Yeah.
It's a constantly evolving practice. There are a couple songwriters who I really admire who are able to write with such proficiency and intention that keep me pushing and keep me working and like really are like the gold standard for me. And I'm like, oh, I just want to write so I can get good.
Right. Are these like people you idolize, or are these people you know?
No, there's one writer in particular. His name is Jim Armenti. Jim Armenti. He plays in a group called the Lonesome Brothers with Ray Mason. They're fantastic. And Jim's also a poet, so it's not really quite fair. He's quite a talented writer. But watching him work and looking at his notebooks and seeing how he edits and seeing how he lays out ideas has always been really inspiring to me. Even if it makes me feel like, oh, my stuff is garbage.
I know.
It's still, get over that.
Right.
Don't focus on that. Focus on just,
definitely
continuing to work. All right, give me another softball.
Okay, soft question.
Soft question.
If you could be in any band,
Any band.
what would it be?
Oh.
Should I stick to like, what's your favorite color? What's your star sign?
No. I think, gosh, I mean, who wouldn't have loved to have been in like the Grateful Dead, dude? That would have been
true.
so fun.
Yeah. That's a good answer.
But Crazy Horse would have also been a phenomenal band to play with.
Absolutely.
Neil
Young.
Neil, hit me up, bruh.
Yeah.
Play some guitar for you. Yeah. I don't know. That's every band.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I would also ruin maybe some of my favorite bands. I'd ruin the Grateful Dead.
I mean, I think you would be great in Crazy Horse.
I think I probably would be too.
I think that would be a perfect
I think
fit
I would be
for
too.
you.
Neil's always been like a huge North Star artist and writer, and everything about Neil Young is okay in my book.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, this one's a real actual softball.
Okay, I'm ready.
Nothing esoteric. Next shows, where can we find your music?
Jeez. I got nothing on the books right now.
Really? You're
yeah,
taking a break?
I know. I'm not taking a break. I'm just broke. No, I just sent out a huge, big booking thing. So something will come together. I've got a couple of things in the works, but nothing on the books yet. And then all the music is Stripmall Ballads on all the streaming services and YouTube and stuff like that. Typically, I tell people to follow the Instagram account rather than like the website or
Yeah,
something
smart.
like
And
that.
that's at Stripmall Ballads?
At Stripmall Ballads,
Cool.
right? I think there are two. I don't understand how to work all this stuff, but the one with the most stuff is the right one. Yeah.
You'll see your face.
Yeah. I think there is a
there you
face
go.
there.
Yeah.
There you go.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for
very
coming
welcome.
up here.
You're very welcome. Thank you
Yeah,
for
this
having
was
me.
great.
I appreciate you guys.
And if y'all want to hear a little bit more, we'll link in the description a solo private performance Phillips is going to do here in a second. So definitely be sure to check that out. Anything else you want to say to the people, Phillips?
Yeah. There is something I want to say to the people. No matter where you are, go out and support live musicians. Go out and support singer-songwriters. If your town in places for singer-songwriters to play in awful settings with terrible acoustics, talk to the owners and tell them to invest in things that make music actually matter. Don't be afraid to shush talkers. Don't be afraid to buy merchandise. It makes a world of difference. And I've been so fortunate in my life to have wonderful fans and wonderful supporters who have done all those things on my behalf. And it's meant everything. So keep doing it.
It takes a village.
It does. It does.
Cool. Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Georgia. I appreciate you. Yeah, it's good to see you guys.
Bye.